All right, rock and roll. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. This is Jay's Rock and Roll Stories. I'm your host, Jay. Welcome back to our New York Dolls Part 4 story. We are on another roller coaster. Let's just get right back into it, shall we? All right, so the Dolls returned to England November 20th, 1973. They started with 2 little television slots, something called the Russell Hardy Show. It's like a chat show. And they also appeared on Monty Python's Flying Circus. Also the Old Grey Whistle Test with this kind of like a mild-mannered little host. His name is Bob Harris. He's just very calm, very chill. The band does their version of the song Jet Boy. It's loud, it's crazy, they're in full gear, and when it ends, Bob Harris just dressed looking at the camera with his little turtleneck sweater. He mocks them. He says, mock rock anyway, from New York, the New York Dolls. I don't know, just kind of douchey. I don't know, anyway, look, you can look that up on YouTube. Just put in New York Dolls, Old Grey Whistle Test, Bob Harris. Whatever. Let's keep moving here. All right, so they're staying at the Blake's Hotel in South Kensington. Sort of like a welcoming party. Malcolm McLaren is there with Vivienne Westwood. We heard them before in previous episode. They have these famous clothes shops. There's a big party going on. Ian Dury is there. Chrissie Hynde. She will be the front man for the Pretenders. She's there. They're all kind of having a good time. Let's see here. Chrissie Hynde goes off with Arthur. They kind of hook up a little bit. So Arthur and Sylvain start going around with the shops around town, looking at little shops in London and stuff. And they go into shops and they do this little trick that they would do in LA where they would see a cool coat, and then, the price tag says, oh, this is 42 pounds. So let's just switch the tag. And they switch the tag with a pound that says 12 pounds. All right. They switch the price tag. That's a trick they would do all the time in LA, and it would work. Didn't work here. So the shop girl sees them doing that kind of shit, and she calls security, and they get arrested. So, all right, so the boys get arrested. They get bailed out, no big deal. November 28th, New York Dolls travel to France, and on the flight, their main roadie, Peter Jordan, he knows the band. They're his buddies. He notices that Jerry Nolan, their drummer, and Johnny Thunders they just seem a little off. They're not their usual drunken, stoned selves. Well, it turns out they're both really high on heroin. They're really fucked up. Okay, so Johnny, his high kind of takes a turn and he starts puking everywhere. The press was there to witness Johnny Thunders puking all over the place, and the next day in the paper it says New York Dolls arrive in Paris. Blah! That's what they wrote on the headline. All right, so the press conference. They're in the lobby of this hotel. Marty Thau can only find 3 members of his band, so he tells everyone, "All right, listen, I'm still trying to get the guys." He throws open the bar. Have a drink, all right? Everyone settle down, just get a drink. All right, so the band will be here at noon. No big deal. Everyone get a drink. All right, so everyone relax, have a drink. All right. So by 4 o'clock, there's an $8,000 tab on the bar from all the journalists, and Mercury Records is supposed to pay that tab, which they're not too happy about. David Joe, they finally get together. They have the press conference. David Joe is drinking from a bottle of Remy Martin. The band is drunk. They discuss their tour. They discuss ideas for a second album. The second album's going to be called Too Much, Too Soon. As the reporters are filing out, they're leaving the press conference, Sylvain jumps up with a cap gun and he's shooting. Pow, 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 get out of here. All right, so anyway, Only a couple hours after the press conference, they are expected to play a live concert at Radio Luxembourg. They are asked to be ready for rehearsals at 5:30, but they're not even close to being ready before 7. So they arrive in complete state of drunkenness. Patrick Taton, who is like a French employee of Mercury Records, who is supposed to look out for the band while they're there, he said that this was one of the most nerve-shattering experience of his business life. The band is really enjoying their stay in France, really getting like sort of like a Beatles rock star like response. Johnny Thunders even commented one time looking out the window, like there's tons of fans, and he's like, "Wow, it's like the Beatles are here." So they play at the Bataclan, and the place is packed. Like it's like the place is really full, and the crowd is rowdy. And they noticed that the crowd are like, well, in the book they said that the guys were, they were sort of like street punk types. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's just they look like they're like tough dudes off the street. I mean, this is 1973. Anyway, rough crowd. Crowd's ready to rock and roll. The crowd, the people are circling their arms and sort of like smashing into each other, sort of like an early version of sort of like a mosh pit. Someone in the crowd, like as the band's playing, someone in the crowd starts spitting at Johnny. Johnny doesn't like that, so he starts spitting back. It escalates a little bit. They start throwing stuff. They start kicking stuff. And then Johnny can't take this anymore. So he takes one of those mic stands. And you know how at the bottom of the mic stand, it's kind of a weighted, like it's like a circular weighted piece of metal. And he just bashes the guy in the face, you know. So that starts a riot. The security kind of whisks away the band, and the whole place just turns into a mess. People are fighting. They're trying to get Johnny. They want to beat his ass. All right. Anyway, so finally the Dolls are finally shooed out of France. Like, all right, we're done. Get the hell out of here. Patrick Taton, I mentioned before, the French employee of Mercury Records. There's a little bit of a service bill at the hotel. It's a little tab that the band left behind for $3,500, mainly for drinks and long-distance phone calls. All right, so moving on. Now they're in Germany. They do some TV spots. The band hates doing these TV spots because it's boring. You know, they have to lip sync, or even if it's live, they think it's really boring. They perform like exclusively for the German press and Mercury Records executives at a place called Salamba's Boudoir. And this is the former premises of the Star Club in Hamburg, where the Beatles like made their start in back 1962, 61, 62, 63. No, even before maybe 61. And so the band they love rock and roll, so they're like, this is fucking awesome. Where the Beatles played. So they're enjoying that. The band comes home back to New York by Christmas, and Johnny and Sable move into a little place on West 24th Street. But she's a California girl, and she's having a hard time adjusting to like New York winter. When Johnny's away doing his thing, Alice Cooper's girlfriend Cindy Lang takes Sable out, takes her to shops, and they hang out. They're like girlfriends. It's nice. 1973 is drawing to a close. Johnny and Jerry Nolan are kind of like this Bonnie and Clyde, just kind of dabbling with heroin together. They're kind of a mess. Mercury Records is running out of patience with the band. They thought the band would sell a lot more albums based on the attention they're getting. They're getting the fucking attention from the press up the ass, but they only sell 110,000 records, which is not bad, but it's like, well, how come shit? Like, what the hell is going on? So the thing is that because of the amount of the press that they're getting, and they're not selling enough, it's like Mercury Records is like, oh, man, we're kind of running out of patience with these guys. So they have another successful show December 30th in Detroit. Detroit is always good with New York Dolls. Detroit is used to like the MC5, as we talked about before, Iggy Pop. Sylvain remembers that at this show, people were showing up in costumes. They're like making like a big party out of this. So that was a good, nice memory for Sylvain, having the crowd is just like, you guys are our band. All right, so they're ready to record their second album. It's going to be called Too Much Too Soon. So they're ready to record. Marty Thau wants George Shadow Martin to record. George Martin, his nickname is Shadow. George Shadow Martin to record them. George Shadow Martin, we'll just call him Shadow, or we'll just call him Martin, whatever. He was responsible for recording the Shangri-Las, who had a number one hit in 1964, Leader of the Pack. Remember the song? He's the leader of the pack. That one, right? All right, so, but that's 1964, and now we're in 1974. It's 10 years. 10 years goes by. You're probably not going to get the same thing as what you had in 64. So Shadow Martin's kind of a weird guy. You can't get a hold of him. You can't catch him. You can't reach him by phone. You have to go find him at a little bar. That's where he is, at like a little bar. That's where you chat with the guy. So Shadow Martin gets invited to go see the Dolls rehearse up on this place called Media Sound Studios on West 54th Street. After another meeting, Martin agrees to do a $10,000 production fee. Why $10,000? Because that's the exact amount of money he needed to buy a Winnebago, so he can go on his little vacations to tour the United States. So anyway, so January 28th comes around, and the Dolls and Morton enter A&R Studios to begin work on their second album, titled Too Much Too Soon. Where did this title come from? Too Much Too Soon. Okay, this is the title of the autobiography of Diana Barrymore, who was the aunt of Drew Barrymore from the Barrymore dynasty. Diana Barrymore's acting dynasty, her life was sort of like a riches to rags story, full of like liquor and pills. David Joe calls this album a eulogy to Diana Barrymore. All right, so the album recording starts off in kind of a negative light. There's no communication between David Joe and Johnny Thunders. They don't have many original songs. Most of the songs are covers. It's kind of difficult for them to communicate. They don't really like each other. Sylvain asks him... Sylvain wrote a song called Too Much Too Soon, and he goes up to Shadow Martin saying, like, okay, I have a song called Too Much Too Soon. Is it going to be on the album? And Shadow says, no, I've been instructed to only talk to David Joe or Johnny Thunders. Sorry, not talking to you. So that's kind of shitty. All right, Morton, by now, 74, he's just kind of like in the middle of the road. He's not trying to find his like a sound like he had back in 64. There's not a lot of energy in the sound. It's kind of tame. The songs just kind of come off, resulting in kind of like the songs come off as if New York Dolls are like a novelty act. It's not like in your face rock and roll as it was on their first album. So the novelty act description kind of couldn't be more applicable. The band does a little radio advertisement about the Valentine's Day show. They're going to do they're playing off the Valentine's Day massacre, and each band member dresses like an old time gangster. They adopt little names, like Johnny Thunders is Giovanni Gonzale, and David Joe becomes Rocky Johansson. Arthur becomes Killer Kane. Arthur Kane is Killer Kane. And Jerry Nolan is called Scarface Nolan. And Sylvain goes by the name Legs. They are the Lipstick Killers. They do like a little newsreel film, like movie, black and white thing, using like old like stock, and then putting in clips from the 1930s and stuff. They make like a little movie to use. Actually, they use the movie at the Academy of Music show, filmed during the presentation. It's kind of cool, but it's kind of hokey. Like it's not really in your face rock and roll. Now we're doing like a little dress up cabaret thing. Like, anyway, so February 16th, they do a concert in Bloomington, Indiana, playing with their buddies Leonard Skinner. They get back together. And the band has reached fame where even the members of the band with their girlfriends are in these little rock magazines. Like there'd be David Joe and Serinda Fox are a couple, and there'd be a picture of them like, oh, David and Serinda are going shopping. David and Serinda are trying on clothes. Johnny, on the other hand, gets a little physical with Sable. They're at this big party in a club. Iggy Pop is there with Sable's sister Coral. Johnny thinks that Sable has been flirting with Arthur, which she hasn't. She's not interested in Arthur. She loves Johnny. So she thinks it's ridiculous and to even think something like that. Anyway, Johnny takes Sable into the restroom and slams her head against the wall so hard there's a gash in her head and there's blood everywhere. Sable is quoted here saying, "That was the first time he hit me. It was the beginning of the torture and the nightmare for me." So that's nice, isn't it? So by now, some promoters have just lost interest in booking the Dolls. I mean, all right, so they're always late. They never not show up, but they're always late, and the later they show up, the drunker they are. Also at every show, there's like groups of audience of fans who just destroy shit. They're like ripping up the chairs, pulling down wallpaper and shit like that. And Johnny and Jerry Nolan, they're into their heroin shit, and now there's like dealers who just come in and hand them the stuff, and they do it right there. And now Johnny and Jerry will just start nodding off in the middle of the concert. So one time at this place called The Bottom Line, the dressing room where the band is just getting ready is like covered in mirrors. Like every wall has a mirror. And Arthur's there, and he grabs a bottle of booze and he chucks it at the mirror, and it just cracks and the whole thing shatters and falls to the ground. And Arthur looks and just goes, "Oh shit," and just runs, and he leaves, only leaving David Joe and a friend, Elliot Kidd. So security rushes in, big dudes who are like, "What the fuck's going on? What's going on here?" And they look at David Joe, like, "What's going on?" And David Joe looks at Elliot Kidd and he says, "Hey man, I'll fight. Do you want to fight? Like, hey, let's kick these guys' ass." So, May 1974, New York Dolls are voted by Cream Magazine as the best band and the worst band. I like that. The best band and the worst band of the year. Okay, so remember Paul Nelson? He was the guy who, from Mercury Records, who first showed interest in the band, who kind of like got everyone talking about it. So he still works at Mercury Records, but he's like persona non grata. Like, he doesn't get to sign bands. They're like, "No, I don't listen to Paul Nelson. He's just bad luck." So eventually, he only lasts another year, and then he leaves. Like that, they're done with him. The band doesn't ever really pull in a lot of money. Yes, each member of the band gets like a $200 like weekly like allowance. They eat in fancy restaurants. They get ride around in limos and shit like that. But none of the band members ever have like money in their wallet. They are like extremely sloppy. Marty Thau like is running out of patience as well, and he's telling them, "Guys, listen, I need to warn you. So I am either like always or at least two consecutively seeing you guys either drunk or stoned. If you don't sit down and start writing material, you guys are going to get in trouble. So May of 74, they're going on a busy tour of the States. They're traveling by plane. While waiting at the airport, Sylvain tells this story how, you got to remember, at the time, Alice Cooper is the biggest thing. So Sylvain has like really curly hair, like a little like permy hair thing, and so did Alice Cooper. So these kids are coming up to Sylvain saying, "Hi, are you Alice Cooper?" And he says, "Why, yes, I am." And they say, "Can I have your autograph?" And he says, "Why not?" And he's signing all these autographs as Alice Cooper. And he even gets David Joe to play the game too, because he says, do you not know my friend Mick Jagger? With David Joe sitting next to him, why don't you get his autograph too? So he gets David Joe to sign a bunch of Mick Jagger autographs as well. All right, so that's kind of a nice little story. Let's do an ugly story. So Johnny Thunders' his new favorite poison is uncut methamphetamine, also known as methadone. This is pure speed. So on June 15th, the dolls arrive in Canada, where some Hells Angels are waiting for them to gladly give Johnny Thunders his new dose of poison, some pure speed. The band's in their hotel doing their thing before they go on to do their show in Montreal. And Johnny Thunders has just been, man, he doesn't sleep anymore, and he just does speed. And he's a little paranoid. He looks out the window of the hotel, and someone has taken like tennis shoes, when you like tie the strings together and you throw them over like the telephone pole like that. So he sees those shoes, and he tells the guys, he's like, "That's it. That's a warning. That's it. The FBI is after me." Like, what are you talking about? He thinks that the shoes on there is like, that means that, oh, Johnny's here. Let's put the shoes up. Okay. It's a little like, yeah, Johnny's here. Got him. He's like, "I'm not leaving until those shoes come down." And the band laughs at them. They're like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, the FBI, sure, the FBI are watching us. Yeah, sure." So, but Johnny says, "I'm not going on stage until Sable gets her ass here." But she's like in LA, and they're in Montreal. So someone gets Sable to call Johnny, and Sable's able to bring him, like talk him down and calm your ass down. There's no FBI. There's just the fucking tennis shoes on the wire. No big deal. Anyway, so the show goes on. Johnny goes on stage, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of his paranoia. It just gets worse from there. So Johnny's like really bugging out, and so one time, this is a story connected to his like meth paranoia. Sylvain is living in Greenwich Village in like a basement apartment with at time girlfriend Janet Planet. If you don't know who that is, that was Van Morrison's wife. So I never knew that Sylvain and Janet Planet were like a couple. So anyway, so Johnny Thunders is bugging out. Has doing all this paranoid shit. Sylvain is in his apartment with Janet Planet. And Sylvain gets a phone call from Johnny Thunders' sister, Marianne. Marianne's crying, and she's freaking out. And Sylvain's like, what, calm down, what's going on? So I guess Marianne had some maintenance guys over to take a look at her house. And while they were in the basement, like Johnny locked them in, and they can't get out. And Marianne's freaking out that Johnny is just like out of his mind. At that moment, Sylvain says like, "Don't worry, I'll check into it." Hangs up the phone. Johnny shows up, and his eyes are like fucking bugging out. He's paranoid. He says, "I just took a taxi over here, and another taxi passing me. David Joe was in that taxi, and he's working for the CIA. He's working for Nixon. He's spying on me." And Sylvain says, at that moment, with like this David Joe, Nixon, CIA shit, he was like, that's when he completely changed. Like something burnt out of his like persona. Like he'll never be the same ever again, which is kind of sad. So what can Johnny do to calm down from this meth paranoia? What can you possibly do to bring you down? Just calm the fuck down. Well, why not increase your heroin intake? Duh, it's yin and yang. Everyone knows this. So that's exactly what he does. And the Dolls get a new tour manager who gladly comes door to door, like selling them their heroin, the doses or whatever. And Sylvain says, I hated that guy, referring to the new tour manager. I hated that guy because he made it so much easier to get the stuff. He was practically just like serving heroin to us. So at the same time, this is interesting, Jimmy Page, he has a lot of faith and hope in Johnny Thunders. At the time, Led Zeppelin are in New York City, and Jimmy Page is really digging Johnny Thunders. He sends limos to pick up Johnny Thunders, bring him to the parties. He has like so much faith, like this is going to be the new guy. This is the new guitar player. That totally could have been, but Johnny went down the road of just the image and not going down the other road of just like improving your craft, honing in, practicing. No, just the image. So that's it. So there's an interesting like comment that this journalist made. His name is Chris Charlesworth. He made an observation about how, because he's been watching the band and playing all these different clubs, and he says that when they play in like a small club, they're on. In like a small, tiny little club, it's crowded, it's sweaty, they own the place. But he said as soon as they get on a stage where there's like over 1,000 people, you can just kind of like their imperfections just kind of like stand out like a sore thumb. And it's like they were destined for the small stage. So that's connected to the problem that we're having right now with the band, is that Mercury Records, that they don't want to put up much money anymore. They're sick and tired of this shit, and they'll book the New York Dolls at a big place, and then they'll book the New York Dolls at a little tiny place, and they're saying, we don't care. We need the money to come in. Marty Thau is saying, like, that's a terrible idea, because like who is behind this idea? Lieber. Why? Is because Aerosmith is signed to Mercury Records, and Aerosmith is going up, and the Dolls are going down, 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 down. We're like, we don't give a fuck. We just need the Dolls to make some money, while they're really promoting the shit out of Aerosmith. So, but Marty Thau is saying, don't book them in these stupid little tiny places, because it's a morale killer. It's like a nail in their damn coffin. And at this point in time, there's not the group as like we were in it together. The group is like dividing into these little groups, little cliques, you know. David, Joe, and Sylvain are just kind of like, we're going to do it. We'll sell out. We want to keep this thing moving. On the other hand, you got Johnny and Jerry, who are just fucking shooting up and doing heroin all the fucking time and fighting like the teenage, like little teenage brats. And then you got poor Arthur, who like, as soon as it was noticed that as soon as he broke up with Connie, he never really made another bond. Like, poor Arthur is just kind of like alone on his own. So that's where we are right now. David, Joe, and Sylvain, Jerry, and Johnny, and Arthur by himself. So the band is slowly cracking, and that's where we're going to stop and take another break. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for Wow, Part 5.